Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Authentic Info Podcast. I'm your host, Admir Sandilchau. In this episode, we are looking at the negative effect that load shedding have towards small business or a business entirely. I myself have seen small businesses shutting down. I have seen small businesses or small business owners giving up because of the problem of electricity. Imagine, for example, as a podcaster, you secure an interview with someone of a high profile, someone who you have long wanted to sit and talk to. You know, these high profile people, they have their days planned. For example, let's say you want to speak to Patrice Motsepe, for example, and they want to give you 1 hour of his time. And by that time, you have arranged everything, the setup is ready. He arrives and then load shedding hits you. Because you are still young, you are emerging. You cannot say that you must have an inventor, you must hire a studio that has backup. You don't have that capacity. And the little that we have depends on electricity. So it obvious you have lost that interview or that guest that day, and it will be difficult for you to get that person. So for example, there are small businesses, for example, spaza shops where they even sell maybe meat, affordable things. Ice cream, for example, there's a guy who had an ice cream business who the president was very proud of, because they said that they used that 350 to start an ice cream business. I think it was in Soweto. What do you think happened to that business now? It has melted away because of the way these stages of load shedding are affecting us. We really need electricity. We depend on electricity. And all the other alternatives to electricity are very expensive. It's very few black people in South Africa who can afford the solar panels. It is very few South Africans who can afford an inverter as an alternative to electricity or Eskom. And majority of us rely on that. Imagine during exams, this affects both children who are in school and those who are furthering their studies, those who are old they want positions and they decide to go back to school. It becomes difficult because you have to study after work. When you arrive at home, you are tired, you want to rest. And then after some time, when you wake up, you want to study, there is no electricity. And if you say no, you will charge your laptop or phone, and then you will use that, and then you affect your eyes. It becomes difficult. So to read on a laptop where there is no light, it's very difficult. And then obvious your eyes will have a problem when time goes on. And all that we're talking about money. To avoid that, you must have an inventor, you must have solar, things like that. So this load shedding is a problem, not only to small business, even big business. We have seen people, losing jobs because production cannot keep up. Imagine in big companies where the machinery relies on electricity, and then in a day they have to lose electricity twice or 3 times because there are companies that operate 24 hours. So imagine that company having to stop producing for 2 hours, and then they come back, they work for 4 hours and stop producing for another 2 hours, because sometimes we lose electricity 3 times a day. Sometimes we lose electricity maybe 4 hours consecutively. Imagine an 8 hours of work, and then you lose 4 hours. So you are 4 hours down. So in 10 days, it's equal to working for 5 days. And you expect the boss to pay someone in that firm full salary. So it's affecting us in all spheres. We have seen politicians, during a speech, speaking on serious matters, and then boom, load shedding. We have seen in serious games, in stadiums, when the game is still busy, boom, load shedding. Imagine such an embarrassment. And even other successful countries, when they come to South Africa, when their people come to South Africa, they are surprised that there is load shedding. They ask, what is that? Because it's something which I think the state should have planned. I mean, ahead to say the capacity that we have and compared to the population in after 10 years, after 15 years, we won't be able to supply the number of people who will be having by then. So let us increase, build more power stations and things like that. But they wait for this to become a problem so that they can assess the problem and try to come up with solutions. When they build Mudupi, it takes years and years. By the time they open it, it busts. And then it will take another 3 to 4 years to rebuild. So it's something, there's no solution. So I don't know, maybe they want to go green, or they want to introduce or give power to their friends who are rich so that they can supply us and have the so-called IPP, independent power producers. And it's going to be difficult for a black child if we go that way. I mean, imagine owing a private company. Even if it's 20 rand, they can come and switch it off. So we know that if we head that direction, it means that most black people are not going to have light at all. It will be blackout in South Africa because, truly speaking, we will not afford electricity. If it wasn't for Eskom, we wouldn't afford electricity. So imagine a power in the hands of the private sector. And we know that the private sector is not dominated by black people. Obvious, if they take power, they take electricity to their hands. Let's say Eskom is sold to one of the richest people in South Africa, and then they decide to increase the cost, the tariffs. It means that if you don't afford, they will come and switch it off, and there's nothing that you can do. But Eskom is very lenient on us. Eskom is lenient on Soweto alone. The bill that Soweto has on Eskom is too much, and I think it can solve the problem of South Africa. But it's very lenient. The people of Soweto still have electricity to date. So imagine such in the hands of the private sector. Imagine, for example, when you owe Vodacom. When you owe Vodacom for 2-3 months, and then they just remove you online. And then you are no longer able to make calls and receive calls until you pay them. That's how it works. That's how the private sector works. So imagine them having electricity in their hands. And I don't think it's a direction that we need to take. And another fear is that are they not instilling in our minds the fear that if Eskom can be in the hands of rich people, then we're going to have solutions. And Eskom is going to supply the whole South Africa with no load shedding because black people are failing, of which I don't believe and I don't support. I think it's just that they are playing with our minds so that we seek alternatives. And when they say we can sell Eskom to this rich person and we can give them support, but I don't think it will be a wise move for electricity not to be in the hands of the state. Like water in South Africa, although there are many villages that do not have a water supply, but water belongs to the state and it doesn't cost that much to have water. And it's not a surprise that you have water today, there's no water tomorrow. So the same should continue with electricity until they solve this problem of load shedding, which is very strenuous. Because imagine starting up a business that relies on electricity, for example, an internet cafe. Someone comes, they want to make 2,000 copies. It's a good deal for you. Then there's load shedding. They have to move to the next one. They have to move to the bigger guys who have solar power, who have inventors. They will have alternatives to Eskom, or those who are totally off the grid because there are businesses who do not rely on Eskom. They are off the grid. And there are places like Orania who are off the grid. I think Eskom took them to the state, took them to court or something like that. But imagine what this does to small business. To small business. There were times where, for example, in Guyana, there's a community radio. Like when there was load shedding, it used to go off. Even if you are listening over your phone, you find out they are off because there's load shedding. They did not have backup. They did not have backup generators. They did not have things like inventors or solar. So load shedding is a problem when it comes to small business, and I think the state must be very fast in dealing with that and coming with solutions to stop or get rid of this load shedding forever. This is Authentic Info Podcast. These are just my views. Thanks for watching.